Holy, Qatar spent that much on the World Cup? That's like buying one Elon Musk. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Roundup Save. I'm Neil, and if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. Roundup Save is all about demystifying money and financial independence. Every so often, I like to do research on a particular topic, and with the upcoming FIFA World Cup finally here, I thought it'd be fun to do a video on the cost of the World Cup. Before we dive in, please remember to like the video as it really helps out the channel. Thanks so much, and with that, let's kick it off. No pun intended. The oil-rich and oil-wealthy nation of Qatar won the bid to host the 2022 World Cup back in 2010, becoming the first Arab nation to host the tournament. So Qatar is a country with a population of only 3 million people and only had one stadium at the time of winning the bid. To say it's remarkable that they won the bid is truly an understatement, especially considering that it's a country in the middle of the freaking desert. All right, so let's talk costs. I'm gonna break this section down into financial costs, reputation costs, and unseen costs. So it's estimated that Qatar has spent, wait for it, over $220 billion. For context, this is 18 times what Russia spent during the 2018 World Cup. I mean, it's not even funny. Qatar basically spent one Elon Musk on the World Cup, and then some. But where exactly is all this money going? Well, remember when I said that Qatar only had one stadium before winning the bid to host? $10 billion is just going to building the stadiums. So that's only a percentage of the $220 billion that I mentioned earlier, and a large chunk of that is going to infrastructure. Now keep in mind that some of this is part of a broader initiative on behalf of the Qatari government to meet a 2030 infrastructure goal. And when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about trains and metros to connect the country, expansion of airports, and creating stay accommodations. With over 3 million tickets sold, the country's population is essentially going to double during the duration of the tournament. Qatar is also spending $270 million on hiring a spokesperson, and not just any spokesperson, David Beckham. With the short-term boost from tourism, Qatar estimates that revenue from hosting the tournament is going to be somewhere in the range of $17 billion. But it's really to be seen what it's going to do for the Qatari economy and what long-term investments are going to look like beyond that. All right, so this is where things start to get a little dark. Behind all the excitement and the intention being the host nation, there are some serious reputation costs at stake for Qatar. To start, there are bribery allegations that Qatar paid upwards of $800 million to FIFA just to get the hosting rights. FIFA president and evil Sith Lord, Seth Blatter, even admitted it was a mistake to give Qatar the World Cup. To quote, "Of course it was a mistake. You know, one makes a lot of mistakes in life. The technical report indicated clearly that it was too hot in summer, but despite that, the executive committee decided with quite a big majority that the tournament would be in Qatar. So to actually build everything, Qatar needed a lot of workers. There were over 30,000 migrant workers just to build the stadiums, and that's according to the Qatari government. These migrant workers were mostly coming from countries like India, Bangladesh, Nepal, and the Philippines. But unfortunately, these workers fell prey to unfair immigration practices in the Middle East, commonly known as the Kafala system. Under the system, workers might experience things like denial of wages, unsafe working conditions and living conditions, and passport confiscations as well, making them essentially forced laborers. Some of these workers have even reported not getting wages for up to 7 weeks. Of course, this has attracted a lot of attention from international human rights watch groups, and for the Qatari government to come under scrutiny like this is not a good look at all. This is for sure having a cost to their reputation. But it gets even worse. According to Amnesty International and The Guardian, these human rights abuses are not just temporary either. Since 2010, it's estimated that over 6,800 migrant workers have died. And the Qatari government, what have they done? They've essentially turned a blind eye to all of it. The government has failed to investigate deaths, and they've identified many of the 6,800 deaths as being by natural causes. More specifically, they're attributing the deaths to sudden and unexplained heart and respiratory failures. Another aspect of this is gender discrimination. Homosexuality is criminalized in Qatar, and it's very unclear whether members of the LGBTQ+ community are even welcome to attend the tournament at all. The government hasn't been very upfront about this or welcoming in general. And finally, we get to the unseen costs. For the migrant workers, the costs are unfortunately the worst. There are costs to the families. For many of these families, with the man being the primary breadwinner and taking migrant jobs to pay for children's education or lift the families out of poverty, these deaths ironically are pushing families deeper into poverty. Another unforeseen cost is to international football as a whole and to footballers themselves. Typically, World Cups are hosted in July, but FIFA had to make the inevitable decision to move this World Cup to November, which is a cooler month in Qatar, but it's still around 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 30 degrees Celsius and humid. Because of these scheduling changes, that is having an impact on European football leagues, and they are not too happy about it. For example, the Premier League is on a complete pause for about 6 weeks, and this is completely uncharted territory for them because the World Cup is happening and they've had to pause all their games. As a consequence, there's going to be football matches that are closer together, and not to mention, this is going to have a physical effect on the players who are not going to be able to get necessary recovery and practice in. The World Cup is no doubt one of the biggest sporting events in the world, and it's a time to celebrate and where countries can put their differences aside for just a moment. But if underlying all of it are human rights abuses, it's just not a good look for the host nation. Qatar isn't the first example of this either. During the 2016 World Cup in Brazil, the government came under fire for human rights evictions in Rio to make way for construction that was happening for both the World Cup and the upcoming Olympics. I think the fundamental question is this: how is history going to judge these host countries? Right now, it's not looking too good for Qatar. I hope you enjoyed this video and found something interesting. Please like and share this video with a friend if you found something interesting that you think they would find interesting. Until next time, take care.